Hi, everyone. Welcome to the quarantine series, the quarantine film series. I'm your host, Kabir Segal, coming to you live from the ATL, Atlanta, Georgia. What's up? Hi to everyone watching all around the world, and also hi to everyone watching downstairs. Hi, Mom and Dad. Thanks for tuning in. The quarantine series, again, what is it? We're putting the spotlight on creative people. These are the filmmakers, the authors, musicians, the jugglers, all right, the conceptual jugglers. These are all hyphenated individuals who do many things, as you'll see. So, if you can, please support the projects you learn about on this broadcast. I think artists and audiences, we need each other. And also, think local. The local film festivals have been canceled. The local gigs have been canceled. So if you can help the local bookshop or the local film festival, let's just try to be there for the creative community as much as we can. If you want to learn who will be on the show, you can subscribe to my social media. We're pretty much available on all platforms. So just click subscribe and you'll be in the loop and in the know as to who's on. And then you can start preparing your questions for them, the hard-hitting questions that you wanna know. So drop a question in the comment field. Let us know what's on your mind, any feedback. Let us know what you're thinking. And also let us know where you're watching from. We've got the US represented here. Let us know where you're watching from. Drop a comment in the comment field. Always get really excited about all the international places. And, these are the people that, are adding and enriching our life with their creative project, adding some soul to our lives. So always like to know what's resonating with you out in the world. So now for the best part of the show, we get to meet the terrific filmmaker. She truly is. She is a hyphenated individual, which I love. She's an award-winning writer, performer, filmmaker. We're going to ask about her solo show, daughter of a Cuban Revolutionary, and she's done. It's very cool in learning about her. She's works at Cal Arts. We're going to talk about her role there a little bit. We'll talk about Shelter, a theater and documentary film project as well. So please welcome to the show the incredible maestro herself, Marissa Chibas. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Of course. Tell me first, Marissa, and also that's Almond, right, next to you.
Almond is here. She's next to me. She's asleep. She'll probably stay asleep.
Okay. All right. Cool. So first, I want to ask you, how are you doing in this period of quarantine? How is it affecting some of your projects?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like somebody shared with me this idea that we're on a Corona coaster, and I definitely feel that Corona coaster where I'm feeling really great and energetic and getting a lot of creative work done, and then other days just really feeling the weight of this moment and how many people are suffering and wanting to hold and make space for that. So and I live with two people who have to be particularly careful for various reasons. So I've been in a super bubble in this close to 9 months. But it's also, there are a lot of silver linings. I mean, I'm getting to know my neighbors who are like the trees and the animals in my neighborhood, and parts of my neighborhood I never knew existed from taking walks. So there are definitely really great things about this moment as well.
I hear you. Tell me about your typical day, Marissa. Do you wake up at the same time? Is there vitamins involved? Are there vitamins involved? What's the routine like over there?
Well, it's interesting because I usually am somebody who sleeps really easily all, through the night, but I've been getting up at like 3, 4 in the morning, and since the pandemic started, and doing a lot of writing actually, which I've enjoyed, but is also exhausting. And I teach at Cal Arts. I run an initiative there called Duende Cal Arts, which is part of the Cal Arts Center for New Performance, the professional producing arm of the Institute. And I focus on connecting our community and creating projects with Latinx and Latin American theater makers. We do professional productions that are presented here in Los Angeles and elsewhere. So I'm busy with that and teaching, writing, walking my dog Almond.
I'm glad. It's always good to be there and have some pets involved. I want to ask you about. Let's talk about some of your projects. And but also you mentioned CalArts. So let's just start there for a second. What's on the syllabus there? What if I take your class, what do I learn?
So I teach acting there. I often will have directors in my class as well. And a lot of what I do a lot of practical things, but it's very geared towards what my students are particularly interested in. So I teach in both the grad and undergrad programs. And so I really listen to them in terms of who are some of the artists they're really interested in. Um, some of the students I've worked with have never played their ethnicity or race. And so I make sure that they're working on material that supports that. And I basically help them build the tools that they need to tell the stories they want to tell out in the world. So I do also a lot of creating missions with them. Right now, they're working on solo projects, so passion projects. What story are they really passionate to tell right now? And I help them basically get the tools to be able to at least start create an outline. They're starting with a monologue, and then I will give them guidance on how to turn that monologue, which can be the cornerstone to a solo piece, which is something that I've done. And then even also, how do you take that solo piece out into the world? What do you want to do with it? That's a little bit of what I do there.
Yeah, it's great. I appreciate you sharing that. Let's talk about some of your projects. Daughter of a Cuban Revolutionary. What is that project about, and how did you sort of manifest this into the world?
So I'm the daughter of a Cuban revolutionary, and runner-up Miss Cuba. So and my father co-wrote the 1957 manifesto with uh, Fidel Castro and Felipe Pasos, who was a businessman. I performed it originally at the Red Cat Theater in Los Angeles, and that was about almost 13 years ago. And the last time I performed it was last year at the Goodman Theater as part of the Destinos Festival, a Latino festival, theater festival that they have, international theater festival that they have there every year. So I've had a chance to do this show in LA, in New York, in Miami, in Spanish, in English, in Guadalajara, in Edinburgh, uh, so, in Boston, a bunch of different cities, basically sharing the stories of my family. And one of the things that was most important to me about doing this show was my father has been written out of Cuban history because he left. Um, one of the Often people will ask me, well, why did he leave if he was a Cuban revolutionary? And I say the idea was not to trade one dictator for another. Uh, the manifesto of 1957, which very few people know about in Cuba or out, talks about free press and um, freedom of speech and things that just do not exist in Cuba. So that's a little bit about Daughter of a Cuban Revolutionary, really centering on my father, that story.
Yeah. What does your family think about this creation and production? What was the feedback of those close to you?
Well, unfortunately, my father passed away by the time I first performed it, but my mother got to see it. And sadly, also, she was in a dementia at the time, but loved the show. And my brother and my sisters have been incredibly supportive. Uh, I found it's been an incredible journey sharing the stories um, and really not just for Cuban Americans. I remember when I performed it in Edinburgh, there was a young man who was Egyptian uh, who saw the show afterwards and said, "My family is in politics. Was in politics. My grandfather was a figure like your uncle was, and my uncle was the front runner for the 1952 Cuban presidency." And a few months before the election, during a live radio broadcast, he gave a very impassioned speech where he ended saying, "Wake up, Cuban people, wake up. This is the final knock at your door." And then he shot himself and he died 10 days later. It was a political act, a suicide. And that's also in the show, and I actually recreate. Uh, I have the recording of his speech, and I'm speaking sort of alongside and at the same time with him. So anyway, it's been interesting, kind of sharing my very personal story, and yet a lot of audience members will say, "Oh, this reminds me of my own family," or um, the thing about exile, which is what a big theme in my play, and something that that a lot of people can relate to, right?
Exactly, exactly. Put your producer hat on for a second, and just how did you think about the creative team assembling, who's doing what was the personnel package like?
Well, it was produced by CalArts Center for New Performance. So I was doing it with my colleagues at CalArts, an incredible team of people. Mira Love was my director, and Anne Garcia Romero was my dramaturg. They were the midwives to the project. And I had been trying to tell the story in workshop form for a couple of years, but when those two came on, they asked the right questions to help me really find the structure to be able to share these stories.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a great production partnership to make it happen. Any plans to bring it? I know we're in quarantine, but to perform it or to bring it post quarantine?
I really feel that with this production that I did last year at the Goodman, I said goodbye to that piece, but I am doing um, something that play focused very much on my father, and I'm doing something right now with an incredible Cuban artist who's currently in Spain right now, Aisa Santizo. She's a visual artist, and she and I are creating a documentary, a full length documentary, a feature uh, that I'm calling a Cuban documentary.
Hmm.
And so I'm pulling from footage from my various trips to Cuba since 1993. Also, Aisa and I did an installation in Cuba in 2017 at Fábrica de Arte in Havana. And so that the film is kind of a bridge between us. Um, yes, that's the piece. It was called Nostalgia. And my mother was born in Matanzas, Cuba, which I've discovered, or Aisa told me, it's the city of bridges. Um, and so, and I love bridges. I love literal bridges and metaphorical ones. And so we decided, let's take some of this footage. I also have this Super 8 footage of with my family when I was a child, and when I held a camera for the first time, a Super 8 camera. So we're putting something together that is um, very much about reflecting on Cuba, and Cuba as this ephemeral, uh, well, this idea that I belong to Cuba. I was raised being taught that that was home, and yet the first time I was there, I was in my 30s. So this strange kind of feeling of belonging to Cuba, but not really. When I'm there, I've had people say, "Oh no, you're not Cuban because you were born in the States," and that's always hard for me to hear because as I just said, I was raised on Cuba's home. You are Cuban. So a lot of the piece also does kind of ask that question of what is home. And partly what Aisa and I are doing are piecing together these images in order to in many ways find a home together as artists. Because in a way, that's where I feel most at home is when I'm creating.
Exactly, borderless, but also creating your own home in a way. So let's talk about shelter. I wanted to ask you about this. It seems like such an intriguing and timely, even timeless project. What is this project about, and how did you get involved with it?
So I started working on that project in 2014. I read an article in the LA Times about unaccompanied children seeking refuge in the United States. And I was hearing about what they were going through, and I thought, oh, I have to do a piece about this. I went to my team at CalArts Center for New Performance, and they immediately said, yes, go with it. I did a lot of research. I collaborated with a writer, Susan Terrio, who wrote a book. She had done a lot of interviews with child migrants here in the United States, and she wrote a book called Whose Child Am I? And I went to a shelter in Southern California that shortly afterwards you couldn't visit them. So I was able to interview a lot of kids. About, I think ultimately I interviewed 9 children. And I collaborated with a wonderful team of artists at CalArts, including the director, Martina Costa, who's based in Mexico City. And we worked with the ensemble of actors and design team and created this piece that we presented in downtown Los Angeles in 2016. And then we took it to the Kennedy Center, was invited to the Kennedy Center as a standalone event. So, and during the whole process, the children, the teenagers that I interviewed were involved with different workshops. They would come and see how we were doing, and I remember that one of the young women that I interviewed after our first workshop said, "I feel represented," and for me, that was probably the most gratifying creative moment I've ever had. Is knowing that, okay, she felt seen, she felt heard, her story's out there. And then I took the play and we did a lot of panel discussions, post-show discussions. I had the interviews of the kids, which I also recorded on video, and I made a short documentary film out of that. And one of the young girls whose story is in the play narrated the documentary. And it won Best Documentary Short at the San Diego Latino Film Festival of 2019. And it also screened at New Filmmakers LA, which is an incredible festival, incredibly supportive team over there. And has played a variety of different festivals. Yeah, so their stories continue. And I mean, unfortunately, when we did it, I didn't think things could get worse. When we presented the play, we were concerned about recent arrivals. Never even occurred to me that we would be dealing with the kind of horrors that we've been dealing with lately, in terms of DACA, in terms of children being separated from their parents. I mean, just it has gotten worse and worse, way worse than during the time that we made both the play and the film.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And it's important to create such meaningful work as you're doing. Marissa, how do you choose which projects to get involved with? A lot of your projects are quite different, and there's a lot of range in what you do. So what goes into making a decision as to how you turn it in, or what project you should turn into one?
I often will be starting to work on something, and I actually was working on something else when I read that article about shelter, and it just would not leave me alone. I just kept thinking about the situation and those kids, and I thought, I have to do something. I have to help get their stories out there in a way that is different than an article, right? A newspaper article, but to bring it to life. So I do trust my gut in many ways. There's a piece that I did recently, which was kind of a perfect quarantine piece because I didn't have to shoot anything. I just used existing material from Hitchcock's films. It's called Hitchcock's Purses, and it focuses on Hitchcock's use of purses in his films. It's like a 11-minute short. And that was also something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's very interesting the way Hitchcock uses his purses. There's they're definitely a symbol of feminine mystique. And so I pulled these different images, and I worked with a fantastic editor, Peter Mark, Brazilian editor, also very hyphenated. He's also an incredible actor and performance artist. And we just, because we're in quarantine, we're like, let's make this film together. So I kind of listened to my gut, and I try to also hear what my different communities are really focused on and interested in and need. And kind of going from there. I mean, I'm very interested in history. I'm very interested in excavating and bringing to light stories that aren't often heard or told.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing that. I want to just thank you for being on the show. It's really been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much for making the space for this. I really appreciate it.
Of course, of course. I also want to get your make sure we get your website up here. I just edit this, and there we go. There we go, MarissaChibas.com, so people can go and learn more about you. I think we have a screenshot too. See, you come prepared.
Oh my God, you are prepared.
So please check out Marissa's website, and really a pleasure to meet you.
So great to meet you. Thank you very much.
All right, that's our show today, everyone. If you want to learn who'll be on, subscribe to my social media, and make sure to take care of the art. We'll take care of you. Take care, everyone.